All right, joining us now is Senator Ted Cruz. All right, Senator, so there, you talk about New York values, and Donald Trump was right in the sense that, New York came together, but as I was just explaining, I just played Andrew Cuomo. He didn't particularly want conservatives like me that are pro-life and pro-Second Amendment and have a different view on traditional marriage than he does. He says they're not welcome here. It's a pretty interesting debate I had with them. How are you?
Sean, it's great to be with you. You're exactly right. It's been an interesting 24 hours where Donald Trump and Andrew Cuomo and New York Mayor Bill de Blasio and Hillary Clinton have all demanded an apology because apparently they're unhappy about people acknowledging that they have embraced New York values. And so I've heard their demands, and I am happy to give them an apology. I apologize to the millions of New Yorkers who have been abandoned by liberal politicians. I apologize to the working men and women of New York who are denied jobs that have been plentiful just south in Pennsylvania because Governor Cuomo bans fracking. I apologize to all the pro-life, pro-marriage, pro-Second Amendment New Yorkers who Governor Cuomo brazenly told have no place in the state of New York because that's not who New Yorkers are.
That's what I'm one of them. But you don't have to apologize to me. Listen, do you know how much more you pay in taxes because I work in New York City? For example, you're from Texas. You don't have a state income tax, right?
We have no state income tax. It's why New Yorkers are fleeing to Texas. And I apologize to all the small business owners who are fleeing New York because the taxes and regulations are killing them. I apologize to the African-American kids who Mayor de Blasio tried to throw out of charter schools that were giving them a lifeline to the American dream. And I'll tell you, Sean, I especially apologize to the cops and the firefighters and the heroes of 9/11 who had no choice but to stand and turn their backs on Mayor de Blasio because over and over again he sides with the looters and criminals instead of the brave men and women in blue. That's an apology the men and women of New York need to hear. But I have a word of encouragement. Help is on the way. 2016, like 1980, is going to turn this country around, and the liberal politicians that have done so much damage to the good men and women of New York, their values are being resoundingly rejected by America.
Wow. That is a powerful statement. Do you know, if you live in New York and work in New York City, do you know I pay nearly 14% more just in income taxes than I would pay in Florida or your state of Texas? Just 14%. I mean, that's 15 cents of every dollar I make. That's a lot of money. Now,
it's exactly right.
And I live in the second highest property taxed county in the country, Nassau County. It's a great county, but I don't think I should be paying the amount of property taxes. And add to that, Senator, sales taxes. They have made it cost prohibitive for so many elderly New Yorkers, people born and raised in New York, to even stay in the state that they were born and raised in, and they have to move for financial reasons. Young people can't get a start and get their first home because it's just so far out of the range of possibility in terms of income. And you know what? I think you're right about one thing. If you want to see how to mismanage a state and a city, and I'm here, you can look at New York. And, one time I asked Donald Trump that. I said, you would save nearly 15%. Now, he's just a New Yorker through and through. He said, no, I don't want to leave. I've thought about it, but I don't want to leave.
Well, Sean, it's striking because Donald said last night he was offended and insulted that I observed that he has embodied New York values. I'll note that assessment didn't come from me. It came from Donald J. Trump. Trump did a long interview with Tim Russert.
Well, actually, I think I got the cut that you're talking about. This is when he was on talking about New York values?
Yeah. No, that's
all right, let me play it. Let me play it for people.
Partial birth abortion, the eliminating of abortion in the third trimester. Big issue in Washington. Would President Trump ban partial birth abortion?
Well, look, I'm very pro-choice. I hate the concept of abortion. I hate it. I hate everything it stands for. I cringe when I listen to people debating the subject. But I just believe in choice. And again, it may be a little bit of a New York background because there is some different attitude in different parts of the country. And, I was raised in New York and grew up and work and everything else in New York City. But I am strongly for choice, and yet I hate the concept of abortion.
But you would not ban it?
No.
Or ban partial birth abortion?
No, I am pro-choice in every respect.
Now, do you accept that he's changed?
Well, listen, he says he does, and that's an assessment for the voters to take up. But, you know, when he was explaining why he was pro-choice in every respect, why he supported partial birth abortion, why he was open to gay marriage, his explanation was that he was from New York City, that those are the views and values of New York City, and he was echoing that. In fact, he says in that same interview, those aren't Iowa values. You know what? He's right. Those aren't Iowa values. They're not New Hampshire values. They're not South Carolina values. And now he's suddenly offended at his own words, his own characterization. And I think in this primary, people need to discuss, okay, what are your views? And not just when you're a candidate for president where everyone says they're a conservative, but for the first 60 years of your life, what have your positions, what have your views been? Because, you know, Sean, we keep getting burned over and over and over again by electing politicians who talk great on the stump, but don't follow through and do what they said they would do. And the stakes are too high in 2016 for us to do it again. Let
me ask you, because you and Trump, for the first time, really kind of went at it last night. And by the way, I loved the opening of the debate last night. And you said, hey, about those 10 sailors. I'll ask you about that in a second.
Sure.
What is your answer, though? I mean, I thought you gave a very good answer on the issue of this so-called birther issue. I interviewed him after the debate last night, and I said, well, I've read the law, and the law actually talks about the very circumstances of yours, and I don't see it as an issue. He disagreed with me, but I don't see it as an issue. And I've been very clear to my audience that I think it's a non-issue.
Well, and listen, Donald knows it's a non-issue. You know, back in September, just a few months ago, he said publicly that he had his lawyers look at this every which way, and there was no issue whatsoever. He knows that. But from September to today, the Constitution hasn't changed. What's changed is the polls. Donald is falling in the polls, especially in Iowa, and that seems to have rattled him, and so he's looking for something to change the topic. And you know, sadly, mainstream reporters react like catnip to a lot of the silliness he tosses out there. You know, I think the American people are a lot smarter and better educated and more sophisticated than the mainstream media gives them credit for. We understand that the stakes in this election, we're talking about pulling our country back from the brink. I think the American people are looking for a commander-in-chief who is prepared to defend this country, who has the experience, the judgment, the clarity of vision, the strength of resolve to keep America safe, to defeat radical Islamic terrorism, to destroy ISIS. And, Sean, I think the reason why conservatives are uniting so powerfully behind our campaign is this campaign more and more is turning into a two-man race between Donald Trump and me. And I think as Americans make that assessment, they're coming to the conclusion that I'm better prepared and better able to keep America safe and to defeat our enemies.
You started this debate. I felt the same sentiment that you did. Those 10 sailors, Obama not even mentioning it in his State of the Union, the week that this idiotic Iranian deal where we give them $150 billion, the right to spin centrifuges, build missile defense, and partner with Vladimir Putin, 24 days notice, they get to build conventional weapons. The week that this is supposed to be implemented, the Iranians take Americans hostage, forcing an American sailor to apologize, hands behind their back, covering a female sailor with, you know, a head covering. I was aghast at this. What would you have done?
Sean, I think Americans across this country, when we picked up the newspaper, when we saw that image of 10 sailors on their knees with the Ayatollah Khamenei doing everything he could to humiliate them, I think we were sickened and we were horrified. If one image sums up the weakness of the Obama-Clinton foreign policy, it is that image. And not only did the president not mention it in the State of the Union, but John Kerry and the president apologized to Khamenei after he captures our soldiers, after he tries to humiliate them. Our government apologizes to them and gives them $150 billion. It was disgusting. It was wrong. And I'll tell you this, if I'm elected president, none of our fighting men and women will ever be on their knees. And if anyone, if any tyrant, if any dictator attempts to capture our soldiers or sailors or airmen and Marines, they will face the full force and fury of the United States of America. This will not happen if we had a commander-in-chief who would stand for America instead of groveling to Islamic tyrants, this would not be happening.
Let me ask you one last question. We're 17 days out of Iowa. It's been neck and neck with you and Trump heading into this Iowa caucus. You are clearly now the number 2 candidate in this race. How do you assess where it's going from here? We have about a minute.
I think the voters are making a judgment. Who can they trust? Who has been a consistent conservative? In a Republican primary, everyone talks a good game. Everyone says they're pro-life. Everyone says they're pro-Second Amendment. Everyone says they're opposed to amnesty and opposed to Obamacare. I think what the voters are saying is, okay, who's walked the walk? Before they were a presidential candidate, who was standing and fighting for the right to life? Who was standing and fighting to defend the Second Amendment? Who was standing and fighting against Obamacare? And who led the fight against the Rubio-Schumer Gang of Eight amnesty bill? And the answer on each of those is I've been proud to stand with the American people in those fights. And Donald Trump, he's a good man, but he was nowhere to be found on any of those issues. Well, and I think that's the reason conservatives keep uniting behind our campaign.
All right. I know you have to run. We do appreciate your time. Senator Ted Cruz, congratulations. I thought last night was your best debate, and it was informative and enlightening and entertaining as well. Thank you, Senator, for your time.
Thank you, Sean. God bless, and we had a lot of fun. We'll do it again very soon.